very much for coming tonight. We have a great crowd. We have a great program. Just a little history. I looked through my records, and the earliest record that I can find that we put one of these on is 1981. And Jerry Keene was a candidate for mayor then. And guess who was the moderator? Ron Struminski. So it gives me, he's a man of all trades or whatever. He's a very able man and smart, and he knows, he's prepared for this, right? Are you prepared for this?
I just started about 10 minutes ago. So
yeah, right. He's been working on it for 3 days. Anyway, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the moderator, Ron Struminski.
Thank you, Max. Anyone who knows me knows that when there's a meeting, we start right on time and we end on time. And so I promise to have everyone out of here by 11:30 p.m. tonight. Before we get started, I want you to join me in a salute to the flag. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. The emergency exits for this hall, there is one through the kitchen, under the clock, straight out, and around the corner. So you need to know that. There also are ballot cards, index cards, on a table just outside of this door. One of the things that we like to do at this rally is to get you involved in asking questions of the mayoral candidates. So I can't promise you we're going to use all of them. We never are able to. If you want to pick up an index card, there are pencils and index cards there for you to write your question. Please make it legible and drop it into the box. All of the Kleenex tissues are out of the box, so there should be room for your index cards. Also, we are streaming live on DoubleACS here, DoubleACS. I always say AHS because I spent 30 years, those of you who don't know me, I spent 30 years of my 52-year education career at Attleboro High School. And many of the people that are going to be speaking here tonight, I know so much about them that I can't tell you. So I will try to behave myself on that score. But by way of transparency, let me just say this. Most of the things that I say tonight about the candidates, it's fake. It's probably not news, but it's fake. And I apologize ahead of time if I hurt anyone's feelings. I always try not to do that. Before we get started, I want to recognize some of the people who are here who in the past have given of their time in public service. So when I call your name, and I apologize if I missed anyone, I don't know everyone. There was someone from 1920 that I didn't remember, but other than that. Current state representative Betty Poore is here. Betty, stand up and say hello. Also from Attleboro, former state representative John Lepper is with us. For the sake of time, let me ask you to hold your applause until the end, okay? Also, former state representative Kevin Poore is with us. Former city councilor Tony Viveros. It's okay to wave when I call your name. Former city councilor Kim Allard Moreau is here. Former city councilor Charles Adler, and former mayoral candidate, sitting with his lovely wife, who was a former school committee member, Barbara Clark. Also, former city councilor and former mayoral candidate John Davis, I'm told, is here. John, where are you? He is here. Okay, great. Okay, now if there's anyone that I missed, I apologize. I'll catch up to you after the intermission. Please write me a letter and give it to my wife. She'll be happy to give it to me. Okay, let me tell you what the outline for the evening is. This is the only rally, we don't call it a debate here. For many years, we call it a rally. It's a community event. It's an opportunity for everybody to come together. And when I say everybody, that means not just the mayoral candidates, but every candidate on the ballot, whether they are running unopposed or opposed, have been invited to be here and will be given some time to talk with you. Those who are unopposed, rather than get up here for a minute and say, gee, thank you so much for not running against me, we've asked them to share with you what they feel will be their greatest challenge in this next term. Okay, so we're going to get some information from them. I think that's all you need to know. The unopposed candidates are going to get a minute. The opposed, those who are in a race, are going to get 2 minutes. At the end of running through all of those people, there'll be a 15-minute intermission, and that will be followed by the debate between Kevin and Mr. Hero, okay? So as I said, I'll have you out of here by 11:30. I need to tell you that Deb Marcuccio isn't with us tonight because she has to send all of the information up to Laura, right? Otherwise, the bills don't get out, is that it? Well, we should have invited her. We don't want any tax bills. Anyway, you know, Deb, I've known Deb for years. She went to the high school. After she left the high school, she got a job as a bank teller, and she got fired the very first day on the job because this woman came up to her and said, could you please check my balance? And Deb pushed her over. You can't hear it where? Can you hear me in the back? I don't know how to do it. Someone who knows how to turn the volume up can help us out? That would be great. Otherwise, I will talk very loud. Okay, we're going to kick things off with Steve Withers, who is our city clerk. And Steve, could you come up here? Steve lives in my neighborhood, and I remember when he ran for office, he said that the first thing he was going to do was he was going to reduce the tax bills. Did you?
How'd I do?
You put them on microfiche.
My name's Steve Withers. I'm the city clerk, and I thank everyone for electing me 2 years ago, and I'm very happy to be back, and I'm extremely thrilled to be unopposed. It has been a nice summer. It's been a very nice fall, and we'll see what happens. I've known Mr. Struminski for many, many years. I got to tell a brief, 10-second story. He was a great assistant principal in high school. I've known him ever since. He was always a gentleman, extremely professional, tremendous at what he did. He did forget that I was a city councilor back in the 1990s, so you didn't recognize me earlier, so one strike on you. But anyway, nobody came here to see me tonight. So what I'm going to say is my biggest issue that I have in the clerk's office is money, like pretty much every other department in the city. I'd really like to be able to get the clerk's office into the 21st century at some point in the near future, and that's really my issue. I thank everyone for your support in the past. I look forward to your support in the future, and if there's anything I can ever do, let me know. Thank you.
By the way, I did forget one former city councilor. Steve Withers was a city councilor. Next up is our city treasurer, Laura Gignac. Come on up here, Laura. I don't know how many of you have been to her office, but if you've ever been to her office, or if next time you go, you want to look as you face her on the right-hand wall. There's a red box, and it says, in case of emergency, break glass. And inside are 2 tickets to Cancun.
Thank you, Ron. I'm Laura Gignac. I'm the Attleboro City Treasurer, and I was asked today to discuss what I feel is the most important challenges that faces the City Treasurer's office in the future. So I feel the most important issue, there's a lot of issues that we do face, but I think the ever-changing banking industry, I have 26 years of banking behind me, but I do feel that that industry is ever-changing, and it's hard to keep up with. There's a lot of rules, regulations that change, and all the loan offerings change, all the interest rates change, so you really have to keep up to date on what's new out there, what the rates are, so you can ensure that the city gets the best rate of interest on their loans and get the best rate of interest on their investments. Obviously, that translates to saving thousands of dollars, paying out on loans, and also receiving on our interest rates. So I think that's a challenge to keep up with that ever-changing environment, but I think I am the right person for that challenge. Thank you, and vote Laura Gignac November 7th.
Next, we're going to hear from the only person that's taller than I am in this election. Can you tell? Mark Cooper is unopposed in the Ward 2 race. He's a fellow who gets paid to stab people with sharp objects. Is that right?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay. Tell them what that means, Mark.
So I'm a
please.
nurse. My day job is I am a nurse. Hello everyone, my name is Mark Cooper, and I am the current Ward 2 City Councilor and the Vice President of the Council. The biggest challenge is probably obvious to everyone in this room. It's the build of the new high school and getting where we need to be with that. In order to get there, we need to focus on the facts and the issues. The council must make timely and transparent decisions while encouraging community participation in the process. We must evaluate any and all new proposals to ensure that those that truly cannot afford any additional tax burden are protected while we build this school. My interest in the council is about a passion, dedication, and a commitment to the citizens of this great city. I have a proven commitment to this position, and that will continue. I have been an active member of the council, willing to speak up and respectfully disagree, advocating for constituent issues and ideas while working hard to make Attleboro an even better place to live. Thank you, and I appreciate the support of the council, the ward, and the citizens of the city. Thank you very much.
Could we have all of the unopposed school candidates please come forward? Okay, we're going to start with David Quinn. David, could you come up here? This is Dr. David Quinn, in case you don't know it. When he ran the first, when I'm talking, you don't talk. I'll tell you when it's your turn.
Okay, thanks.
You ever get a chance to say that to a PhD? Huh? Anyway, when David ran in 2015, someone brought him to my door to introduce him. And we had a nice conversation, and he said to me, I said to him, "What's your favorite book?" And he said, "My favorite book is Thinking Fast and Slow." Are you nodding?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Danny Council?
Anyway, as a result of reading that book, him telling me that, I ran right down to the library. And I realized now, what was that? I realized that as a result of studying that book, that David Quinn is an expert in heuristics. And he adheres to a system one, practices the suppression of ambiguity and spontaneity. And he'll now explain that theory in 1 minute. Your turn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Struminski. I am still working on that PhD. Having a five-month-old at home slows that down. Professionally, I'm a school administrator. As Mr. Struminski said, I'm working on a PhD at the University of Rhode Island. And I just wanted to say, as a transplant to this city, I've been really impressed with the quality of life and the level of quality of our schools. They make innovative decisions with limited resources, and I couldn't be prouder of the work our teachers and our students and our administrators do on a regular basis. I have a little bit of a different take on the biggest challenge facing our community, and it's a challenge facing many communities across the country. It's civic engagement. And by that, I'm not talking just about voting, I'm talking about participation and bringing citizens and community groups together to leverage our collective intelligence to improve the lives and prosperity for all. Civic engagement requires critical thinking, which, to quote a Kathy Davidson piece, means being able to see where I'm standing, but also where you are. It means having enough knowledge, research, and discipline not to overreact if you disagree with me, or if you dislike me, or if you disrespect me, but to pause and think about who you are and then help bridge the gap between us. To that end, the Attleboro Public Schools has received a grant from the Nellie Mae Foundation to partner with the Great Schools Partnership and Everyday Democracy to connect the schools to members of the community and community organizations to build mutually beneficial relationships. I'll end with an invitation to join us as our discussions over the next 3 years. Through deliberative discussion, trust, integrity, there's not a problem we can't solve together. But that problems and that tackling needs everybody at the table. I thank you for your vote. Have a good night.
Thank you, David. Next up is Robert Geddes. By the way, did I mention that Max Volterra is sitting down here? He, of course, is a former state rep and a former city council person, and he's got these cards that tell you how much time you have. Yeah, what is that? That's for me, not for you.
I'll need it.
When Bob Geddes was in college, his father said to him, "Bob, if you make the dean's list, I'll give you $500. You remember that? Bob called his father when the report cards came out and he said, "Dad, I got good news for you." He said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "You get to keep the $500. Bob Geddes.
Anyone that saw my GPA the first 2 years of college would truly be amazed that I'm now on the school committee. So that is a very appropriate introduction. Thank you, Mr. Struminski. Thank you to Agudas Achim for hosting us tonight, and for all of you for being here, and for everyone watching on DoubleACS. My name is Rob Geddes. I am currently an at-large school committee member. I'm just wrapping up my first term. In that term, I've served on the Policy and Personnel Subcommittee, as well as spending time on Facilities and Infrastructure and our Finance and Budget Subcommittees. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Cooper and Mr. Quinn for stealing what I had planned on talking about as my two biggest challenges facing the school committee for the next term. First and foremost for me, it is the high school. There's a significant opportunity for funding and a significant educational opportunity for our students and our community that comes with building this high school. So I'm working hard to build support for that. If anyone is interested in helping me to build that support, please reach out to me sometime soon. And to Dave's point, community engagement is critical. I was fortunate enough to be chosen by the chairman to sit on the group that is working with the Nellie Mae Foundation to increase our community engagement. So if you are someone that would like to know more about what's happening in the schools and would like to participate in helping us to get out into the community more, please feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you all for voting for me 2 years ago, or for those of you that did. Hopefully you'll vote for me again. Hopefully those that didn't will reconsider this time around. But thank you very much for having me, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. James Storrs is not with us tonight because, well, I don't know why, but I know that he went shopping at the mall during the blackout, and by the time the help got there, he had been on the escalator for 3 hours. So I'm sure that he's probably recuperating at this point. I know him. Okay, let's jump down to William Larson, who is running unopposed in Ward 2. He's famous for having asked an airline stewardess, "Where do you get off on a nonstop flight?"
It was so much fun to be in the high school with Mr. Struminski. I'd first like to start off by thanking Agudas Achim for hosting this event. I'd also like to thank everybody in Ward 2 for their support over the last few years. I hope I can continue to earn that going forward. It is certainly my pleasure to serve on the school committee. This last 2 years has been a great committee. I hope we stay together. I think we're really making strides for the community going forward and everybody involved. I would echo my friend's comments. Obviously, the next thing ahead of us and our biggest challenge is building what's going to be the beautiful brand new Attleboro High School. And the challenge, I think our challenge should be to make sure every single voter in Attleboro votes in favor of doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Steve Withers is not here tonight, is that correct? But I want you to know something about Steve Withers, about his decision-making, because I saw him make a decision during a time when the school committee had adjourned, and I saw him flip a coin. So, I know I'm getting too sophisticated. I also have a message here from Lori Scales, who isn't with us tonight. She said, "I don't like to brag, but she wants you to know she can still fit into her earrings from high school." Michael Tyler is next from Ward 6. I almost left without saying something nice about you. This is one tough guy. I got elected to be the chairman of the superintendent search committee, and he was chairman of the school committee. And at our first meeting, he came in and he said, "Don't think that I won't dismiss you if you step out of line this much." You remember that?
I do remember.
Anyway,
I still let you say
we're at the meeting, and Mike says, "I want to propose a new school motto." And I said, "Well, let's talk about it." He said, "Get this right, every word of it. You are unique, just like everyone else."
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Tyler. I'm the Ward 6 School Committee representative, and I want to echo Mr. Larson's sentiments. This has been a great school committee the last 2 years. They've been focused on education, as we should be, and I think we've made great strides. In talking about that, yes, our number one job is education, and that's what we're here all about, and we're supposed to be advocating as much as we can for the students and the parents and everybody else who's tied to the school system. But I will say that I'm also a assistant superintendent of a surrounding community of the Public Works, and we have a serious funding issue. But we do not want to deplete the city of Attleboro services that we provide to do that. I mean, I realize the value of the services the city has, and I think they do a great job. The problem, in my opinion on this, is a Chapter 70 funding formula. We need the state to step up and realize that this formula is old. It no longer fits 2017, 2018 educational needs. So the city has been making a great effort to help out the schools as much as they can, but I believe in my own mind that it falls upon the state to rework this formula to the current needs of the city. And I thank you very much.
Okay, you gentlemen are dismissed. Please vacate your seats. And we're going to invite the City Council at-large candidates to please come down and take a seat. City Council at large. Okay, we're into our races now, and these people are candidates for at-large City Council. You're going to be electing 5 of these people. They're each going to have 2 minutes to address you. We're going to begin, and I put these down in the order that they appear on the ballot, which means that James DeLisio will be coming forward first. How are you tonight?
Good, how are you, Ron?
Good. You know, this fellow has a child at Coelho Middle School. Am I right?
You are.
What grade?
correct.
What grade?
6th grade.
6th grade. So his son asked him if he could come down to school because He's very good at math. You know, what do you do?
Well, I'm a former banker now.
That's it, stop right there. He's a former banker. His son told the teacher that he was a former banker. So he said, do you think your father can come down and talk to the class? So he did. And he got in front of the class, and he said, now I'm going to give you a math problem to solve. Here it is. You go to the bank, and you put $100 in the bank, and you're going to get 5% interest. What do you think you get? One of the kids raised his hand, you remember this? And he said, a toaster.
Ron, always a tough act to follow. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you to Agudas Achim for hosting us, and thank all of you for coming out and being part of the process. My name is Jay Delisio, and I'm running for re-election to the Attleboro City Council at large. I'm a two-term city councilor, former member of the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority, and a former police commissioner. I'm also a mentor to the Attleboro Youth Commission, the founder of Attleboro Restaurant Week, and a youth sports coach. I'm also a member of the Coelho PTO. Professionally, I have experience, as Ron was alluding to, in both the public and private sectors. I've spent 15 years in business and consumer banking. Currently, I'm a district manager with the Registry of Motor Vehicles. And during my 2 terms on the council, I've worked very closely with residents on issues that impact their neighborhoods and their quality of life, from parking concerns to snow removal, rubbish removal, and streetlights. In addition, I've also worked with some of the more complex issues across the city that affect the city as a whole, such as public safety and education. As a husband, homeowner, father, and taxpayer, I want what's best for Attleboro. We've tackled important issues this term, and we have difficult decisions that lay ahead. I'll continue to advocate for what matters to you with strong, effective leadership. You, the residents of this great city, you're my motivation. You're the reason why I entered into public service to begin with. I take the fact very seriously that the decisions we make today impact Attleboro's future very seriously. I'm going to continue to make sure that your tax dollars that you work so hard for, work hard for you. On November 7th, it's crucial to elect someone who is accessible, has experience, and is a proven leader. I am that counselor, and I humbly ask for your vote for Jay Delisio for Attleboro City Council at large on November 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. You don't have to stand there. You can go back if you want. Next on the ballot, number 2, is Peter Blais. Peter, come on up here. I've known Peter for 100 years.
3/4 of those.
3/4 of those. You're almost as old as I am.
Almost.
Peter grew up in Attleboro. Grew up in a real tough part of the city. Back then, it was even tougher than it is now. Peter used to floss his teeth with barbed wire. And he beat up every kid in the neighborhood except the O'Briens. They were girls.
You're a tough act to follow, Ron. For those who don't know me, my name is Peter Blais, and I'm running for re-election to the City Council. I have been truly blessed to have served the city for 18 years and ask for your continued support for 2 more. I have had many significant accomplishments, but one of the biggest was in the rebuilding of Briggs Playground Pool on the east side. This enabled the children of the east side the pool that would not have been available to them. When funding was in doubt, I was able to secure over $30,000 of private funding to secure the grant for that project. Another significant accomplishment was in suing over $40,000 in donations for our veterans van. This gave our veterans the transportation needed for their medical appointments. In my 18 years, I have only missed 6 meetings of the City Council, most for needed medical care, 4 of which were for 2 major operations. I have and remain committed to serving you, all the good citizens of Attleboro. In this year's election, I ask for your vote so I can continue to bring common sense and a business approach to the city council and help move the city forward with my continued support for public safety and our schools. You are my biggest priority. I ask you for a vote Peter Blair, City Council, November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next up is Richard Conti. Richard? Richard is a gentleman who has the wisdom of youth and the energy of old age. I'm not going to say it again, don't worry. Half of them didn't get it. He says that he is extraordinarily patient, provided he gets his own way in the end. Richard?
Thank you, Ron. We go way back. I want to thank Agudas Achim. It's certainly very nice to be back here. And I want to thank everybody who's in the room who's ever voted for me. I've really enjoyed the past 8 years. They've gone by in a flash. I left a card on all the tables, and there's more out in the lobby. They show all my accomplishments and 3 major issues that are facing the city next year. I hope you get a chance to read it. If not, please go to my website, www.councilorconti.org, and on there you can see videos of all of my accomplishments and the things that I want to do. It's important this year to tell you that I am not affiliated with any political party. I am not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not an independent. I've made this decision because I want to be a truly independent councilor. I've got 3 promises for you. If you return me to office, I promise you that I will work very, very hard, as you've seen me do in the past. I promise you that I will push for fresh air and sunlight in city council affairs and business so that the public have more visibility to what is going on in your government. And third, I promise to shut the checkbook, which you've heard me say before, because one of you told me that phrase and I took it to heart. I promise you that I'll do all I can to help make the municipal council a more effective body. So please, consider me for another term. I promise you I'll give it everything I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next up is Heather Parika. Heather?
Hi, Ron.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You know, Heather drives bus in Attleboro, and she once told me that bus driving is very educational. In fact, it has already taught thousands of drivers to stay single. Thousands of drivers are not going to get married because, forget it.
Well, thank you for that, Ron. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Agudas Achim, for hosting this forum this evening. I've met many of you previously, but please allow me to introduce myself to you again. My name is Heather Parika. I am one of your at-large city councilors, and I'm currently in my 2nd term, looking to return for my 3rd term. I've been married to my husband, Eddie Parika, who's standing out there somewhere, for nearly 23 years. And we're the proud parents of 3 children. Hadley, who's a freshman at the University of Maine. Little Eddie, well, we call him Little Eddie, he's 6'4", but he's a junior at Attleboro High School. And our youngest, Maggie, she's also a freshman at Attleboro High. We settled here in Attleboro 19 years ago as a young married couple, and not unlike many of you here, we chose to start and raise our family here, and we're so very pleased that we did. Our family lives by 3 very simple virtues: nice matters, everyone works, and to live a life of service. These 3 virtues that I have are the 3 virtues that I've brought with me to the City Council. Over the last 4 years, I've worked tirelessly to learn how our city works and who you need to talk to get things done. There's still much for me to learn. Every constituent phone call, email, Facebook message, chance meeting at the grocery store, church, farmer's market, or even at the football field brings a new opportunity for me to gain a better understanding of what affects our community and sets me on the path to find reasonable and appropriate solutions for residents' issues. I hope that I have your vote so I am able to return next term to continue to learn and grow and share my knowledge so that I can be the best advocate for the residents of the city of Attleboro. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather. 2,000 bus drivers are staying single. I don't know.
Dead horse.
Dead horse, I guess.
Can you call me later and explain that one to me? 'Cause I don't.
Of course I will, Heather, absolutely. Next up is Paulo George Salgueiro. Paulo, come on up here. This is our youngest candidate. And his mother said to me, I met her tonight. Come over here. Don't be afraid. His mother said to me, would you please go easy on him? That's Maria right there. Maria, raise your hand. Maria loves him, and she thinks he'll make a wonderful city councilor, right? When Paulo was in high school in English class, his English teacher, I used to be an English teacher, so I can appreciate something like this. And his English teacher gave him the assignment of completing this sentence. School is practice for the future, and this is how he answered it. School is practice for the future, and practice makes perfect, and nobody's perfect, so why bother?
Well, good evening. I'd like to thank the congregation for hosting this event and thanking everyone here for attending this evening. Some of you may or may not know me. For those who don't, my name is Paul Salgueiro Jr. I'm 23 years old. I'm a recent college graduate. I'm a brother, an uncle, and a son. I'm also a candidate for city councilor at large. The reason I want to run is I honestly believe I can make a difference in our community. I attended Attleboro High School. I graduated 2013, graduated from Bristol Community College, attended George Washington University, and I finally graduated from Anna Maria College with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Now, as I campaigned this election, I've had a chance to hear many stories from many different residents. Stories from parents whose child is no longer in our school system due to lack of resources for special education. Stories from senior citizens contemplating leaving our city due to affordability. And more importantly, stories of lack of communication among public officials. Attleboro should be a city that prioritizes education. It should be a city that's affordable to anyone from any walk of life. And it should be a city that actually hears its residents. If you vote for me on November 7th, you're voting for someone who's going to hold office hours throughout the week to hear your concerns. You're voting for someone who will prioritize education in our city. And more importantly, you're voting for someone who will strive to make Attleboro the best community it can be. I ask for your vote November 7th for City Councilor at Large. And before I finish, I'd like to leave you guys with a quote. And I'm going to read it because I don't want to mess it up. Former President of the United States, Barack Obama, once said, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek." Thank you, and I ask for your vote November 7th for Paulo Salgueiro, City Councilor at Large. Thank you.
Maria, how did he do? He did perfect. Okay, good. Okay, next up, Councilor at Large, Seth Blais. Seth?
Front and center.
Front and center. This young man used to be a Marine Corps recruiter. Did a lot of recruiting, talked to a lot of young people to convince them to join up. And his best line was, "You can't have a bad hair day, and you'll end up using less shampoo." Right?
Oh, man, that is great. So let me let you know I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's absolutely great to see the congregation as full as it is. My name is Seth Blais, and I'm a candidate at large and a newcomer. Tonight, the citizens of Attleboro and Blue Pride Nation have an excellent opportunity to learn a bit more about the candidates in this fun and exciting format.
As a newcomer, I wish to present more about myself than the platforms and agendas that will eventually suck the air out of the room tonight. I certainly am concerned about infrastructure, economic growth, and I am 100% behind the favor of building a new high school. Wayne Gretzky, NHL great, once said, "You miss 100% of the shots you never take." I was approached 2 years ago to run for city council by several people in this room tonight. At the time, I had two other paramount choices in front of me. My twin teenage daughters were making moves towards high school, and I had to get my home in order. At the same time, I was recently elected as the president of the Massachusetts Veteran Service Officers Association. My plate was full, professionally and personally. I purchased my family home from my father on 7th Thatcher Street in order to provide a home for two potential Blue Bombardiers. While president of the MVSOA, I served on several committees that will lend to my success as a councilman. I served on the legislative committee, the advisory board, the compliance committee, and the training committee. I have the knowledge and skills and abilities to perform as expected, as your councilman. I want this position because I know the only abilities are availability and durability. Those two attributes are pivotal in building relationships. My experience at fostering quality relationships here in Attleboro began when I was the Marine recruiter here in Bristol County. I was trusted to educate, guide, and mentor young men and women through the process of planning their futures. There are three specific Attleboro High School graduates and first responders that I still keep in contact with. Noah Scott is a Boston firefighter, Josh Spruill is an Attleboro firefighter, and Nathan Matos is an Attleboro police officer. After 10 years, because of my care and concern, I will always look out for my brothers. So what am I asking? Again, I want to build a relationship with the residents of Blue Pride Nation. This has been fun and exciting, much like political speed dating. I ask for your vote on November 7th. Thank you very much.
Next up is Julie Hall. Julie? You need your glasses. Well, you can hear me without your glasses. Everyone knows how energetic Julie Hall is. Every time you turn around, she's there. When Julie joined the Air Force, she and all of the recruits were in the same room, and the commanding officer asked the group, "Who here is very artistic?" And Julie shot up, she put her hand up, and the commanding officer said, "Okay, the rest of you take the weekend off. Julie, you're going to be marking the names of all of the people here on their undergarments."
The best job. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Julie Hall, and I'm running for re-election for council at large. I am the daughter of the late Alan Fran Hall, who taught me the most important thing to be is the best me that I can be. I am a glass ceiling breaker, an accomplished leader. I was an airman, a sergeant, and retired a colonel in the United States Air Force. I commanded troops while as a single parent raising Michael Hall, who is now 26, married, and in the Army Reserves. I am proud of Michael. He was a combat veteran, and I am a veteran. I have a three-legged cat named Taz. I earned a master's in health administration and human resources. I came to Attleboro in 2010. While on my homeowner's board of trustees, I had a small team that oversaw a $1.5 million repair and upgrade project. The homes are now safe, beautiful, and the resale value has increased by on average $30,000. I'm proud to have discovered a solution which allowed the mayor to utilize unspent healthcare dollars, a portion of which was available for reallocation to critical school requirements. The actual amount realized in 2017 was $386,000, and I'm very proud of that. I helped 3 new businesses get off the ground. I'm currently working for 2 more to bring more revenue into Attleboro. I give a substantial amount of my personal time to local organizations. When I chose to retire here, I invested myself in actively supporting and improving this city. I was on the planning board, and I'm now finishing a very successful term on the city council. I'm a strong and dedicated councilor. Simply put, I set goals and I make things happen. With your support, I have much more to accomplish in this city. I would be honored to continue my proven record and ask for your vote this Tuesday for me, Julie Hall, on the 7th name down on the Councilor at-large ballot. And I thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Our final candidate for at-large council is Roxanne Ruth Houghton. Roxanne? Roxanne is an animal lover, does a lot of great things for animals, and she has a lot of animals. And in fact, she has a dog, and last night for Halloween, she dressed the dog up as a cat. And today, the dog won't come when she calls.
Okay.
Tell them what that means, would you?
Well, good evening. My name is Roxanne Houghton, and I'm running for City Council at large. I'm running because I care about things, lots of things. This election, we've heard a lot about the big issue, the proposed high school, and that decision will be made in a few months by the voters of this city. Tonight, I wanted to talk about the issues that residents have shared with me after they've invited me into their kitchens and their living rooms. The more personal issues that affect their everyday quality of life. And the reason I'm going to mention these things is because I promised them that I would. First and foremost, residents care about their neighborhoods. They care about sidewalks for their children. They care about having more police patrols in their neighborhoods so they can feel safe. They care about overdevelopment, and they care about security in their schools. Actually, I heard from 2 police officers in the city who expressed concerns of security in our schools. They care about conservation and our environment. They don't want compressor stations, asphalt plants, and active landfills coming into our city and into their neighborhoods. We need our neighborhoods to be healthy if we want a healthy city. They want education properly funded. And I heard a lot about taxes. The people that I spoke with don't want to keep being told that their taxes are low, because they aren't. They don't want the bridging of that gap between the businesses and the residential. They don't want that to continue on the fast track. Myself, I haven't found any evidence that businesses are leaving because of taxes. Our residents want to be treated with respect. They want returned phone calls from their representatives. They want their city council to become independent and understand their role. And they want them to work for them. I also heard a lot about the budget issue this year, and we really need to work on that. That's all I'll say on that. These issues might seem smaller than the building of a big high school, but they're important to tens of thousands of people in this city. For those of us elected to office, it will be our job to bridge the gap between our neighborhoods and our city government. It'll be our job to get things done. I would respectfully ask to be one of these electees. Thank you, and I'm number 8 on the ballot.
Thank you, Roxanne. You people are dismissed. And at this time, please come forward, candidates for City Council, Wards 1, 3, and 4. Please come up front and take a seat. We're going to begin with the Ward 1 race and introduce to you Sara Lynn Reynolds. Sara Lynn, by the way, is the lady who introduced the monologue into conversation. Sara?
I don't know if I like that. Hello, I'm Sara Lynn Reynolds. I'm your Ward 1 City Councilor, and I'm here today to ask you for your vote on November 7th. My career began as a teacher, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. In 1986, I purchased a home in South Attleboro, where I raised my 2 sons, Derek and Kyle Swenson. My daughter-in-law, Petra, and my granddaughter, Annabelle, are here tonight with me. At this time, I was hired as a news director for WARA, and this is where I first became involved in politics. And I had the opportunity to work alongside my mentor, friend, and colleague, wherever he is, Ron Struminski. There he is, Ron Struminski. In later years, I worked as a regional field director for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and then as a trainer for the UMass Donahue Institute, promoting tobacco control initiatives. Prior to taking that state job, I worked alongside Jim Mooney at the Attleboro Health Department, and we promoted and passed the first regulations for tobacco control in the state of Massachusetts. Later on in my life, and more recently, I have been involved with senior health care consulting. As the second oldest of 8 children, I learned early on about life tools, collaboration, compassion, leadership, and listening. These life tools allowed me to work successfully with public and private administrations, finding solutions to problems. I align with my constituents in my decision-making, and during my time as your city councilor, I have always promoted full transparency. The ever-increasing property tax for homeowners has become stifling. I propose freezing the tax rate for homeowners over the age of 70 years old. A new high school has become a need. It is no longer a want. It is vital for our students that Attleboro High School is equipped with 21st century educational capabilities. Please vote Reynolds on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. Jim Poore is Sarah's opposition. Jim? James K. Poore?
Correct.
Attorney James K. Poore?
I know of him, yes.
It's not you.
It's a cousin.
Oh, he's your cousin, because I had a story to tell about him. And I'm not going to tell it. What do you do, James K. Poore?
For work?
Yeah.
I am a medical equipment driver. I deliver medical equipment to people's homes, so I...
Oh, do you know Tom Rafferty?
The name sounds familiar.
Don't bother. Don't bother to know him.
Hi there, thank you very much, and I appreciate everyone showing up. My name is James Poore, and I am a candidate for Ward 1, which is most of South Attleboro. For those of you who do not know, South Attleboro is not a separate town. Some people think it is. It is not. A little background about myself. I grew up in Walpole, lived there for 22 years, and I went on to go to Worcester State University, graduated in 1994 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Geography. I lived in Walpole for 22 years, bounced around a bit, and then moved to Attleboro about 9 years ago. Moved to South Attleboro 2 years ago. My wife is Kristen, and I have 3 young children. My daughter is Madeline, who's 6, and I have twins, Jackson and Colton, that are 3.5. So I very much care about their education and very much care about the future of the school system in Attleboro. I personally think South Attleboro is the best part about Attleboro. If you drive down there all the time, down Route 1, Highland Ave, you see all the businesses going in there now. A lot of great neighborhoods, and I want to be the representative for Ward 1. I'll bring a lot of passion and energy, and I promise that I will be the best candidate that I could possibly be, and I'll make Attleboro very proud. I believe I am the best candidate for Ward 1, and I look forward to your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
We now move on to Ward 3, and I will invite Scott Fullen to come forward.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
You know, Scott was very much involved at one point in construction management. Knows a lot about construction management. And I happened to be in the Home Depot last week, and I ran into someone at the Home Depot who said that Scott had been there the day before. And Scott was asking him, he said, "Where can I find some hammers, nails, a trowel, and a bag of cement. And the clerk said to him, well, he said, they're all under construction. And Scott said, oh, well, where will they be when they're finished? Excuse me, I think there's something wrong with the mic. We're not getting out to, we're only getting the people in the front. Scott.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you to Agudas Achim for hosting this event. Thank you to Ron Struminski for moderating, and thank you to DoubleACS for broadcasting to our residents at home. My name is Scott Folan, and I am asking the residents of Ward 3 to elect me to the City Council. I am prepared to get to work day one. This is not a learning experience for me, but rather a call to public service to keep Attleboro affordable. My candidacy is not about bolstering my resume for future races, and my focus is only on representing Ward 3 on the City Council. I know I'm the best candidate for Ward 3, and I'd like to tell you why. I was raised in Attleboro and attended St. John's and Bishop Fien. I then completed my bachelor's in business administration at St. Joseph's University. My education challenged me to strive for excellence in all things and engaged citizenship to improve my community. I will embody these principles as your representative. I have already represented the residents of Attleboro for several years while working for the city, and I am humbly asking for your vote to continue to do just that. I promise you I will work with my colleagues, regardless of their affiliations, in the interest of making your government responsive, efficient, and responsible. I will make certain that your voices are heard. In me, you have an unbiased and unencumbered representative beholden to no special interest aside from you. I am running for you, the residents of Ward 3. I will work diligently to shield the taxpayers from any unnecessary cost associated with the new high school project, as well as pursue alternative contribution options for those on modest fixed incomes. I will work with the business community and the Chamber of Commerce to develop and to attract sustainable economic development as not to allow the residents to shoulder much of the tax burden and water rate. My goal is to keep Attleboro affordable for you. As your city councilor, I will represent you with dignity, honesty, and integrity. I humbly ask for your support on November 7th and look forward to the opportunity to advocate for the residents of Ward 3, and I thank you in advance for your consideration. Thank you.
We move to Ward 4. Kate Jackson? What did I miss? My humble apology. Mr. Folan told me not to introduce you. You did tell me that, Scott, didn't you? He said I wasn't supposed to say it. I won't get invited in next election if I do that again. Scott Kobus. Scott, come on up here. There he goes. Todd, over here. That's Scott. This is Scott. This is Todd, yes? Yes. Come over here. I understand you met my wife last night.
Monday night, there was a meeting.
Oh, Monday night. Oh, okay. You met my wife Monday night, and Todd works for Google. And he told my wife that Google is a female, because before you can complete your sentence, she begins to guess and suggest things. Right? Todd Kobus.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Kobus, and I'm running for the Ward 3 City Council seat. I'd like to thank Mr. Struminski, Mr. Volterra, the congregation of Agudas Achim for hosting this event, my wife for all of her support, and everyone here for participating in the political process. Thank you. So I'll start tonight by sharing my vision. It is pretty simple. I'd like to keep Attleboro an affordable and attractive place to call home for our socially and economically diverse community. I come from modest beginnings. My sister and I were raised by a single mother right down the street here, and after graduating Attleboro High School, I joined the Army to help pay for college. And as an intelligence analyst, I've completed combat tours of both Iraq and Afghanistan. In the civilian world, I work as a software engineer and a manager, and have a proven history of accomplishments. A couple of years ago, I interviewed with arguably the most sought after and selective private sector company in the world. I studied night and day for those interviews, and after 9 rounds of interviews and being sent over to Silicon Valley, I succeeded in a merit-based contest where only the top 0.1% of people are selected. I have brought that same drive from my military career and civilian career to this campaign, and if elected, I will bring the same independence, tenacity, and work ethic to the council floor. My priorities for the city are education, the economy, and public spaces. I support building a new high school as the most cost-efficient option available to our city and the best option for our future. I also believe education is so much more than a building. In order to fund education, we must focus on expanding the tax base by encouraging new businesses to make their home in Attleboro. Everyone should receive in Ward 3 a mailing from me tomorrow. Please feel free to call me anytime. Listen, obviously I'm nervous up here. I'm not a polished career politician or political insider. I don't have ambitions beyond city council, and I'm not looking at this as, looking at the next rung on the political ladder. I'm simply a husband, a homeowner, and a father with a vested interest in the long-term success of our community. And I'm asking for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Can I go to Ward 4 now? Okay, Scott. Kate Jackson. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know, 1997 maybe?
1997?
Yeah, because I'm looking around the audience and I'm...
Just talk into the mic.
Well, see, I'm looking out into the audience and it's like deja vu. I see Max, see Ann, Michael, but most of all I see Jessie Murphy. I haven't seen her in forever. Hi, Jess.
All right, that's enough. That's enough. They don't live in your ward. They're not going to vote for you anyway. I've known Kate for a long time, and she has a favorite expression that I want to share with you. Kate's favorite expression is, any woman who strives for equality with men lacks ambition.
Oh, my goodness, he's so funny. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for spending your Wednesday evening with all of us. Hi, Dee. Thank you very much for spending your Wednesday night evening with us, and thank you to the Agudas Achim, again, for hosting such a wonderful evening. Like I said, I feel like I'm back in 1997 when I first ran for City Councilor at large. My name is Kate Jackson, and I am the current Ward 4 City Councilor. I began my career as a city councilor back in 1997 when I ran at large, and I successfully won and served 4 terms. 2 of those terms I served as vice president with much pride. 2 years ago, the option came up to run for Ward 4, and I thought it was a great fit for me and my family at the time. And I have actually enjoyed my time on the city council as much as you might not think I have. I really have. It's been great. It's been gratifying, and I feel that I have served Ward 4 with dignity and honor. And I would love the privilege of being able to serve Ward 4 again for another 2 years. So I ask that you vote for me on November 7th. Vote Kate Jackson, Ward 4 City Council. Thank you.
See if I get this right. Dismissed. Okay, now we're going to invite the candidates for Ward 5 City Council and Ward 6 City Council and the Ward 5 School Committee race. Please come forward. Everybody comfortable? Okay, let's take a look next at Ward 5. And let me call to the dais Laura Lee Dolan. Laura? Come over here, Laura. I have known Laura a long time. And I'm pleased to say that Laura served on that superintendent search committee that I chaired, that I mentioned about an hour ago. Laura was very excited when we finally made our decision. She was so excited, she got out of her chair, and this is no word of a lie. Most of the things I've been saying are all lies. This one is not. Laura got out of her chair and actually did a dance because she was so excited about the choice. Do you think you could do that dance for us now?
I don't
Yeah.
remember doing that.
Well, I'll show you. It was one of these. Was that close?
Yeah, that was, yeah.
That was pretty good, right?
Exactly it.
She did a nice job on that committee, by the way. Anyway, Ward 5, Laura Lee Dolan.
Good evening. Thank you, Agudas Achim, for having me. My name is Laura Dolan. I'm a candidate for Ward 5 City Council. I've lived in Attleboro my entire life, and I'm a graduate of Attleboro High School. I've been married to my husband, Tom, for 20 years, and we have a 14-year-old son, Nathaniel, who attends Warm Sutter Middle School. For the past few months, I've been knocking on doors, meeting Ward 5 residents, and I've had some great conversations, mostly relating to education, the new high school, and economic development. When the subject turns to downtown, many people reminisce about the old days of London's, the Camera Shop, Silman's Shoe Club, and all the great memories our generation has of those days. And Attleboro still has many things to offer, such as our parks, our open spaces, and our farmers market. While some long for the old days, we still have the opportunity to create new memories for our future generations that will be just as meaningful. As a Ward 5 City Councilor, I will work with council colleagues, the Mayor's office, and groups such as the Chamber of Commerce to encourage new businesses to come to Attleboro. We can do this by showcasing Attleboro as a desirable community with great transportation options and even better quality of life. I support the idea of a new position in city government to focus solely on economic development, and I believe that if we provide appropriate funding for our school system, we will be a destination families will seek out to work and to live. The campaign has been a great experience for me. I've met so many new people knocking on doors, and the concerns many people share about our city's future are always combined with hopes of what is yet to come. When I take my son to one of his favorite places, Tex Barry's, and tell him about the bustling downtown of my youth, I'm motivated to work with others to help Attleboro return to its glory days. I've never felt more positive about the future of our city and would be honored to serve as your city councilor for Ward 5. I humbly ask for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
If you win, will you do the dance again?
Maybe.
Maybe. Laura's opponent in Ward 5 is Raymond Morrow. Raymond? Hawaii is another gentleman I've known for a long, long time. And I'm going to tell them this story about you, even though you don't want me to. Raymond is a terrific Patriots fan. And back in 1986, when the Patriots were in their first Super Bowl, he wanted to go to that game in New Orleans. I can't tell you how badly he wanted to go. You remember that?
If you say so.
So Ray took out an ad in the Sun Chronicle, and I thought it was so unique that I cut it out, and I kept it all these years. And it says, you remember this, right?
I think I do.
Yeah, he does. It said in the ad, this is exactly what it said. Wanted, I am offering marriage to any woman that has tickets to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Those interested must send photos of the tickets. Ray Morrow.
Thank you, Ron, bringing up old memories. First of all, before I start, I'd like to say thank you to all the vets that are in this room for serving and allowing me to stand here before you and ask for your vote. My name is Ray Moreau. I'm your candidate for Ward 5 City Council. I've lived in Attleboro since 1966, And as you can see, I'm nervous and I'm referring to my paper. I'm retired from my business of 25 years, and I have the time to serve as a city councilor. Nobody can deny that our children are our future. And a new high school with up-to-date IT systems is crucial to the education that they need for today. We need to take this step, as others took this step when the present high school was built in the 1960s. Right? Police, fire, recreation, and other essential services of the city are very important as well. Right? We need small business friendly community is very important, and small businesses contribute highly to the city of Attleboro, and they need to know that small business happens. The Attleboro Chamber of Commerce renamed itself for regional identification, right? And right, we need a business organization that's in town that will represent businesses.
The hook is coming.
The hook is coming. I ask on November 7th that you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Good to see you. By the way, I remind everyone that Mr. Volterra is the timekeeper, and he holds cards up to let you know where you are. We move now to Ward 6, City Council, and we begin with Diana Holmes. Diana? Where are you from originally? Attleboro. Did you go to the high school?
Yeah.
Come over here. What year did you graduate?
98.
Well, no wonder I didn't recognize you. I left in 94.
Oh, okay.
You don't remember me, right?
No.
Good, thank you. By the way, Diana Holmes is a registered therapist. Now, I want to ask you whether or not her talents are needed on the Attleboro City Council. Now, I'm going to tell you what her talents are. Here they are. You correct me if I'm wrong, Diana. She deals every day with mood disorders, personality disorders, and relationship issues. I give you Diana Holmes.
Hi. Hello, my name is Diana Holmes, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 6. Is this good? I'm a wife, mother of two, and a social worker. If elected, being a social worker gives me a unique view to offer to the council. I truly love Attleboro, and it would be an honor to be involved in the city in a formal way. If elected, I will be an independent voice and express my opinions and concerns for Ward 6 residents at all meetings. There are a few areas that I'm currently focused on. I have worked to resist the compressor station in Rehoboth. Although this project is on hold, I still think Attleboro must remain proactive in efforts to halt this project. Another area I care deeply about is education. As a graduate of Attleboro High School myself, I understand firsthand how important a public education can be. I am in support of the construction of a new high school and want to see how we can make this a reality for Attleboro. Finally, the opiate crisis in Massachusetts is something we need our elected officials to produce results for. This is an issue that has affected many, and it is up to the city officials to address this crisis head-on. For all these issues and others that arise, I will make myself available to the residents of Ward 6 and be transparent as possible. Attleboro is a great place, which we all consider home. If elected, I will continue to ensure that our community provides important resources to the Ward 6 residents of today and tomorrow. I want to thank those for inviting us all here, and I'm hoping for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. The incumbent in this position is Shannon Hegney. Shannon? Now, I know you were there.
Yes.
Yeah,
You always tease me, but I never got in trouble, so I never met him. Really.
You never met me?
In your detention, like
What detention?
professional dean's office or anything. I just was always that student. But I did know him. You know my family, and even Laura was talking about cornerstones. We used to own Hegney's on the corner of
I've never heard the
Park.
name Hegney in Attleboro before. Anyway, after every election, every time Shannon wins, she has a favorite expression.
Uh-oh.
She says, "Thank God, I couldn't have done it without her."
Yeah, okay, yes. And we're in these halls.
Thank God, I couldn't have done it without her.
Yes, I got it.
Shannon Hegney.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is Shannon Hegney, and I am seeking re-election as the Ward 6 City Councilor. I am a resident of Ward 6 in particular for over 40 years, and I see many of my residents in Ward 6 out here. And I'm also a graduate of Attleboro High School, but also a former Attleboro school teacher. I'm very proud to say that I have been an Attleboro school teacher. As the Ward 6 councilor, I have many varied demographics within Ward 6. And one thing that I wanted to share with you and clarify is all the sidewalks you see in Ward 6. To me, they're not just aesthetically pleasing. They have a function. My senior year of high school, my mother fell and broke her neck, and she was paralyzed. She came home and she taught her children the word tenacity, not to give up because you're very determined. And at 18 years old, I was in that hospital room and heard her say, "I will not give up, I will walk." Well, when she did come home, she was in a wheelchair. I could not push her out of the neighborhood to have the ability to go down South Main Street. My neighbor was in a motorized wheelchair also. He said, "Thank you." And that's why I just want to let everybody know we have varied demographics. I support all residents within Ward 6. And I've also worked with the administration to now continue all those sidewalks that we've installed from Olive Street all the way down to Juicy Drive, millions of dollars in Chapter 90 funds that we have allocated. And I'm hoping, if reelected, we'll push those sidewalks down to the Seekonk border, because that's something that does mean more to me than the aesthetically pleasing. The tenacity. My mother raised all successful children. My mother. Many of you hear the name Larry Hegney. My mother married an Attleboro man, and she has raised us to believe in what we are saying is right and have tenacity and be determined to get it done. Even today, I received an email from at-large Councilor Heather Perica, who said, "Hey, someone contacted me needing a crosswalk installation. You get it done. Maybe you can help with this." I get along with everybody, and I represent all Ward 6 residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. We're now going to move to the Ward 5 School Committee race. This is the only ward that has a contest, and we begin with the incumbent, Sharon Johnson. Sharon? Did I have you in English class? Are you sure?
I'm sure.
1948?
Hey now.
Sharon is such a lady that when she was in school, she refused to do improper fractions.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Shannon Johnson, and I'm currently a member of the Attleboro School Committee representing Ward 5. I'm running for re-election and asking you for your vote this evening. First off, I do want to say thank you to the congregation of Agudas Achim, to everybody that put together this candidate forum tonight. I'd like to do a quick thank you to my family who's been so supportive over the last 2 years. And a thank you to everybody who is here in the audience tonight and who is watching at home. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. So we were asked to discuss what do we think is going to be the biggest challenge coming up and how we're going to address that challenge. In my opinion, my biggest challenge is going to be the $10 million funding gap that the Attleboro schools currently faced and what we're going to do to close that gap. Now, prior to my first term on the Attleboro School Committee, the prior committee approved the 7-year strategic plan, also known as Envisioning 2020. And if you're not familiar with that document, it's a living document and it provides, it's a guide to address the challenges, both known and unknown, to address the long-term success of our schools. And using the principles from this plan, the school committee and the city drafted recently a 5-year fiscal sustainability plan. The mayor recently came to a recent school committee meeting and we discussed that. And this plan is a wonderful plan and it's going to work to close that $10 million gap. Now, this plan's success relies on some variables, and some of these variables are outside of our control. I dedicate myself to the next 2 years that I'm going to do all that I can to tip these variables in the favor of the city of Attleboro and the Attleboro Public Schools to make sure we come out on the positive side here so that we can give our teachers the tools that they need to provide our students the 21st century education that they deserve. So thank you very much. I hope to have earned your vote, and I hope to see you on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Sharon's opponent next Tuesday is Daniel John McKerney. Dan? There he is. Does he look happy? Tell the truth. You think he looks happy?
Very.
There are two reasons. One reason why he's very happy, and there's one reason why he isn't. The first reason is that he's very happy is he got married on Saturday. Let's hear it. The reason he isn't happy is because he went to Cancun and had to come back for this rally. Attleboro High, class of '81, Dan McKerney.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Daniel McKerney. I'm running for Ward 5 School Committee. I just want to tell you a little bit about me. I was born and raised here in the city of Attleboro. I've lived here my entire life. I did a lot of volunteer work from back in the 1980s, as Mr. Struminski was talking about. I had his son Adam in basketball. We won the championship that year. I basically want to run for school committee to make a difference. I talked with my wife, Linda. She encouraged me. She said, you know what, go for it. My good friend, John Davis, I sat down and spoke with him, and also Laura Dolan, who's running. It's my first time here, first time for office. They said, hey, you know, go for it. I went up to City Hall. I grabbed my paperwork. I walked many streets through the summer and this fall. I met a lot of old friends that I haven't seen in years. I met a lot of new friends. It's been quite an experience. I really appreciate the people welcoming me into their homes, talking with me about issues. One of the biggest issues was about a new high school. Once again, I'm just one person. Like I said, I was a single dad until Saturday when I got married to my lovely wife, Linda, which I love you. I say put it to a vote. I will always try to do my best. I will never make a promise that I cannot fulfill. And I will say that our children of today are our future of tomorrow. Once again, please come out and vote November 7th. Daniel McKerney, thank you and have a good evening.
Okay, that completes our school committee and city council. We're going to have a 15-minute intermission. Refreshments are available. Mingle around, get to meet some other folks from the community. And I'm going to be meeting with the mayoral candidates and getting ready for that debate in 15 minutes. Thank you. I'm going to quickly outline the procedure for the mayoral debate portion of tonight's program. We're going to begin with 5-minute opening statements. We flip the coin, and Paul will start. There'll also be a 5-minute closing statement, during which time we will reverse that order. So that is one part of it. Secondly, I've taken the questions that you submitted in that box, and boy, there were a lot of them. And I closeted myself in the room with the idea that I was going to try to find at least 10 questions that more or less have not been covered during this campaign, so that we could get some additional information. So I've come up with 12, and each of the candidates is going to get 1 minute to address 10 of these questions. The third portion of this is going to be an opportunity for each of the candidates to ask the other a question. They will have 2 minutes to respond, and then a 1 minute rebuttal. And then we'll close out the evening with 5 minutes of closing talk, at which time the candidates will have an additional chance to elaborate or clarify or whatever they want to do with what went on before it. Okay? So with that in mind, we're going to begin with a 5-minute opening statement, and I remind both of you that Max Volterra is the timekeeper, and he will be cueing you on how much time you have. He's got 1 minute, 30 seconds, and time's up, and I have a hook. So anyway, I thought that what I would do, which would make this very interesting, is that I would bring the disciplinary records from the high school of these two people. But when I ended up putting them in the box, it was too heavy to bring here. You know, they say there is no perfect politician, but you'd never know it reading their campaign credentials, would you? Okay, Paul is going to kick this off for 5 minutes. This is everyone's last opportunity to make a decision, and I hope that what comes out of this now will help you decide who will be our next mayor. Paul Harold. Kevin's going first.
I go last.
No. You go first. Let me check my notes. It says here that they were very confusing in the meeting. I journal everything. I don't forget anything. Mayor Dumas, yours first. I had one chance, right? I had a 50-50 chance of getting it right, and I blew it. All right, Kevin, you're on.
Thank you, Ron, and good evening. Thank you to the congregation for allowing us to be here this evening. Thank you to all of you who've taken time out of your busy schedules to be here with us tonight, and certainly those who are watching from home and those that will be reading in the Sun Chronicle and online. We appreciate your time and your interest in the 2017 mayoral debate, and also through all of the other people who are running for public office this year. I have to say this brings back great memories of being here in this room back in 2003. And I was sitting on this side, Mayor Robbins was sitting on this side. And going back to that time and reflecting on where we were then and where we are now, certainly the city of Attleboro has changed greatly. Is it perfect? No. And that's why it's important for us to be able to focus on our goals, focus on our objectives, and continue to move forward. But I go back to that time and really think about where we were. And certainly we had free cash only of $7,333 at that time. We had frequently the Briggs Corner Fire Station, the Brander Station, closed repeatedly year after year during difficult overtime problems in the fire department. That hasn't happened any longer. We certainly had seen municipal facilities have major issues, zero maintenance agreements, dollars being wasted. We had budgetary issues across the board. And certainly Attleboro had much more to look forward to, and that was part of my campaign back then. And looking at a lot of the objectives that have taken place. For example, the Bliss School, looking back at that time, it was boarded up actually on the chopping block for demolition. The old post office building next door to City Hall, certainly part of Government Center, but really wasn't in use at all. An important, vital building in the downtown, now filled with the Registry of Deeds, the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and the city's building inspection office, in addition to the auxiliary police. Certainly looking forward, we had another massive building in the downtown, which was the Ashley Building, now with 2 vibrant businesses, restaurants on the first floor, and we also certainly have housing opportunities that are listed above. We look at the area where the transit-oriented development district is now happening with Renaissance North building with 80 units of housing, and also the 2 new buildings that'll start in the spring with commercial development and also 226 units of housing that leads the pathway down the rest of the Riverfront Drive district and where the MBTA parking lot is. Part of our urban renewal plan that we started many, many, many years ago, but led to the acquisition of property through city planning, through our master plan, and to be able to create this entire new district, investing in the city's future, and that's becoming a reality. City of Attleboro's Department of Public Works facility certainly being in its new location and being in a position where now we opened up the development for Judy Robbins Riverfront Park and many other opportunities across the city. The city's credit rating has been raised twice, which means it's extremely important for the financial stability of the city. And when we borrow dollars that we need to do projects, we're doing that less expensive and pushing our tax dollars even further. We've secured open space with working with our partners across the city to secure hundreds of acres of precious open space land, something that we take as valid and something that's very important as part of our city. Some of our future goals to look forward to. Why another 2 years for me? I'm committed. I love Attleboro. I have been impassioned in this job, serving the residents here of this great city, and I have to say that there's many great things to look forward to. Certainly with the implementation of our 5-year financial and stability plan with the schools and for the city of Attleboro and all of our departments is very important. Paramount is the construction of a new high school, and I've been the candidate that consistently has been in support of that right from the very beginning, working with the school building committee and the Mass School Building Authority to see that project across to the fruition when we're going to be working with you, the residents, but also being very mindful of working with our older adults to make sure that they can stay in their homes and not vote no, but vote yes by providing an opportunity for relief for them so they can support this worthy project to provide 21st century education for those students who are in grades 9 through 12. In addition, one of our goals also moving forward is the protection of additional open space that backs up to over 600 acres. The city, the Land Trust, Mass Audubon, and Oak Knoll all participating together, working together to be able to secure the property that used to be Locust Valley Golf Course, something that's really important, not only to those neighbors, but also for the largest tract of land of open space in the city of Attleboro. Many other things to look forward to. I hope that I can count on your support. It's been a great privilege and honor to serve as your mayor, to see where the city is today with financial stability of over $3.8 million in the City Stabilization Fund. And I have to say, it's been a wonderful opportunity to work with the residents and the city leaders and the city department heads for the 1,100 employees who care and provide services to all of you across this great city. Thank you very much.
Challenger on Tuesday, Paul Harrow. Paul? 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ron. It's a real pleasure to be here this evening. And I'd like to thank Agudas Achim, the congregation, the elected officials we have here, and all of you. This is what it's all about. It's all of you. Whether you vote for me or not, thank you for participating in the political process. I'm running for mayor because I have a different vision for Attleboro. I think Attleboro has come a long way in a lot of different ways, but we can come even further. What I'd like to think about is 3 different categories that I'm running on, 3 specific things I want to do differently than things have been done, the last several years. One of the things I'd like to do different is work a little more collaboratively with businesses throughout Attleboro. We have a great resource in the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce has one of the best pulses on the business community, but they're not used as a resource. I want to work with businesses that are not in the Chamber of Commerce, find out what their needs are. Why are these two, whether you're in the chamber or you're not in the chamber, why is that so important? Because as I've gone around knocking on doors, talking with different people, I hear over and over again about how difficult it is to open up business here in Attleboro. I hear about all these ridiculous little red tape and regulations. I hear about double dipping with fees. We unfortunately have developed a reputation for not being very business friendly. That needs to change. If we had a more business friendly environment by working with the Chamber of Commerce, by working with businesses that are not in the Chamber, by improving our business community, the atmosphere here. I'd like to hire an economic development director, which would only cost $60,000 to $80,000 a year based on qualifications. An economic development director is going to bring businesses here. In 2011, the incumbent stood here in this room and talked about how there was financial stability within Attleboro, and that nobody had been laid off. There's also talk about the way, his opponent, Mr. Churchill, talked about there was 23, 22 vacancies downtown. There still are. What we're doing to attract business here in Attleboro is not working. In fact, as a percent of the value of properties in Attleboro, 82% at present is business. It's actually looking like it's going to be going up to about 83, 84%. So the value of business is actually going down in Attleboro. And that's a problem, because that shifts the burden of tax collection onto the homeowners. And it seems like that's been intentional. So what I'd like to do is try and shift that back to the businesses, get more businesses here. There hasn't really been much of a push to do that. If we had more businesses here, by having a more business-friendly atmosphere, by having an economic development director to recruit businesses here, we'd also have more revenues for things like schools. There's a 5-year plan that's been outlined, and I have a lot of problems with that 5-year plan. I think it's largely a political document. Some of the things that I'm talking about doing are, adding to net school spending, of $1.25 million over the minimum requirement, and giving more than 50% of the new tax levy. Additionally, I wouldn't want to do something like retire school debt and put that towards the operating budget for the schools. That's not sound fiscal policy. You need that space. It's not a good idea to get hooked on what was previously capital expenditure into operating. You might need that for for capital expenditures in the future. Also, I've talked about using the cannabis industry, which is estimated to be anywhere from $1 to $3 million. That I would like to dedicate the majority of that, or even all of it, towards education. Business, education, now city governance. There's a lot of things we can do different with city governance as well. One of the things I've talked about a lot is term limits. Now, I don't support term limits for the legislative body. I think that would harm the institutional knowledge, and no one person has the monopoly on power in the legislative body and the council. But in the executive branch, I think it's absolutely necessary. When you have somebody who has been in one place for too long, it's not healthy. Additionally, I'd like to create a Disability Rights Commission that's been disbanded. Whether you're a senior with a disability, whether you're a veteran with a disability, a kid with a disability, or a parent who has a kid with a disability, it affects everybody. We don't have a Disability Rights Commission. We should. Also, I'd like to put our city checkbook online. City checkbook is something, it's your money. Last year when the school budget crisis was going down, a lot of people were really wondering where the money was going. And there was very little transparency. Sure, there's a budget document online, but that's not the line item detail of where the money is actually going. So there's a lot of projects that are going on right now, a lot of good projects. And just like the incumbent took over a lot of the projects from his predecessor, I intend to do that too. I'd like to think that things have come a little way, but they can come a little bit further. So I'm looking forward to next Tuesday, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We should be very proud to have two truly credentialed candidates to be mayor of the city of Attleboro. As I mentioned, and thank you very much. There were far more questions that you submitted than we could possibly get to. So here's what's going to happen. I've chosen 10 questions that are things that haven't been addressed necessarily, that you want to hear. Gentlemen, what I would like to do is read the question, have you get up and answer it, and I'm not going to come back and say, now it's your turn. As soon as one of you finishes with that question, the other can get up, and then we'll move on from there. Okay? You with me? Okay. First question. What will happen if the school vote fails? Paul?
What will happen if the school vote fails? First of all, I hope it doesn't fail. There's been a lot of work and a lot of money, a lot of time and energy put into the current project. And, if it fails, we get a second chance to vote on the same proposal. If it fails, though, and I've gotten myself into a little bit of trouble answering this question in the past, but I can't lie about this issue. I have to just be straight up honest with everybody about it. If it fails, we have to go back to the drawing board. That's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost a lot of time. And what we would have to do is also create a different school plan, which means the school committee would also have to come up with a new school plan. It's going to take a lot of time as well, because the current design of the school is based on the school plan. If we are in a situation where the current plan fails, what we have to do is we have to create a different plan that has fewer opportunities for students. Under those circumstances, we would have to then look to see that we'd have a smaller school be proposed. That runs a lot of risks, though. That's really important to know. It runs a lot of risks associated with that. So if it fails, I hope it doesn't, but if it fails, we have to go back to the drawing board, unfortunately.
Thank you. Like my opponent had just stated, unfortunately, if the vote does fail, we need to be able to be in a position to be able to go back again. And working very closely with the school building committee and the school committee themselves in establishing the education plan that they bring to the school building committee, it is very clear of the needs. This is not a high school that's over the top. I know we've had presentations certainly with the school committee and now with the city council, but this is a comprehensive high school. Attleboro's fortunate for its Chapter 74 programs that provides a wide variety of services to our student population. But it is a comprehensive high school, so there will be additional programs that will be added to meet the needs of the students, but we still have to have culinary. We still have to have all of the other types of programs, graphic design, automotive, and the things that we have today would still be a part of the educational plan for the new school. So if for some reason it doesn't, the basics of the school are the basic needs for the school, and we need to be able to provide those. I can't see that there's going to be a plan. We certainly have been reimbursed, and it's cost over $1 million for this feasibility study. As my opponent also stated, the fact that we don't want to be wasting the taxpayer dollars to go back and totally change that, that we have to work with the public to educate every sector of the public in order to be able to gain enough support to get this project passed.
Thank you, gentlemen. This one was a little difficult to read, but I finally figured it out. And Mayor Dumas, you'll be first to address it. Should the laws be changed to do away with property tax exemptions for nonprofits and church property? I will read the question again. Should the laws be changed to do away with property tax exemptions for nonprofits and church property? 1 minute.
That's not going to take me 1 minute. So certainly for those churches who are exempt, and certainly for other organizations who are non-property tax paying entities, I would not be in favor of doing that. Certainly in the city of Attleboro, we have tremendous nonprofits that we have located that provide extremely wonderful services to people, and that's not something that I would be in favor of changing.
I'm also not in favor of changing that status. There has been some talk about whether or not we should tax Sturdy Hospital, try and get some more money from them. To do so would be arbitrary and capricious. We wouldn't be allowed to do that. So that's one of the sentiments probably behind that question. At present, the La Salette actually has a lawsuit against Attleboro because under the incumbent's administration, taxes were taken from La Salette, and they are now, the state Supreme Court, the Supreme Judicial Court, has ruled that that money should be returned to La Salette, and it hasn't been. So unfortunately, that's resulting in a little bit of a lawsuit. So while we can say one thing in principle, in practice, sometimes it's different here. That's what I'd like to change.
We'll start this time with Paul. How can we get more young people to vote?
I think the way to get more young people to vote is to let them know what their interest is within this. It starts with education, also starts with families. You know, I have an internship program at the State House where actually somebody in this room was one of my interns. And, you know, that person is now, you know, moving right along in the political system. But, you know, it starts by creating an interest. There's a lot of different things we can do, you know, whether it's at the local schools, you know, holding, you know, contests to bring kids, you know, up to the State House. I'm Representative Poore and I, we've had, you know, we've hosted many students up there, many groups. You know, Dennis Walsh, you know, with the rec department, he's come up there a lot as well. It's getting kids involved, you know, showing them that their participation does matter. We can do that formally through organized programs. We can make these up. We can do things that are existing, or we can just go ahead and, you know, just do as Representative Poore and I do, just help bring them up one at a time at different groups. So thank you.
A number of years ago, the city was able to form its first youth commission, and it's really neat that talking about getting people involved, that one of the people who first served on one of the first 2 rounds of the youth commission actually now came back to serve on the Human Rights Council. So I think that certainly getting kids involved with our youth commission is important, and it's also important to be working with people in general and to be able to get people interested in what is going on in their municipality, in their city that they care about and they love. In addition to the fact what we do in our schools, we started a new program this year. The first school is Brennan, and actually getting into these young people's minds to say, hey, what is it about your city that you like? What is it about something in the city that you'd like to see change? And what would be your solution? And it was really interesting to be able to see how their minds were churning, and they were asking questions, getting feedback from each other and also through me, but also being in the same realm that now they have to write about it. So I think that the more that we can engage young people early on is certainly a nice way to be able to get them involved and hopefully care very much about what their city has to offer.
Mayor Dumas, you'll be up first on this one. This is an interesting one. Should our ballots include the choice of none of the above? Why or why not?
Interesting. I really have a statement, a yes or no, but everybody has the right on a ballot to pull a ballot. It's in your name. You take that ballot and go to the box. You don't have to fill out any of the circles. So if you choose none of the above, you can do that by just not circling in anybody's name, and that could be for any elected position that's on the ballot.
I actually don't see the harm in having none of the above. It seems to be a little bit of a kind of a jab at the current establishment, but that's okay. You know, this is your government. You know, if you have a problem with us and you don't like either one of us, then none of the above actually might send us a little bit of a signal. Pay attention to the message we're having. Another thing, you know, just as kind of a little, I think Mary Ann in the elections office will probably appreciate this, a little public service announcement. When you write in something like Mickey Mouse, that takes our city officials, you know, in the elections office a long time to process those because they still have to go through every one of those ballots. So it's just a little public service announcement. Try not to do that. Either leave us blank or fill in one of the 2 of us. Thanks.
Next question will begin with Paul. How would you confront a dramatic downturn in state revenue sharing given the current fiscal climate?
This has happened in the past. During the recession, there was a time when Chapter 70 money was rolled back, but the state then went ahead and offered different types of revenues. Revenue collections haven't ever, you know, really gone down as much as we would think. The growth has slowed, but is it possible that we could, because we've had recession where you've had receding revenues coming in, but not a depression where you're actually in negative growth. So, I mean, that hasn't happened since the 30s anyway, but what would I do? One of the first places I look to cut is my own salary. You know, anything that I would do to city employees, I'd be willing to do that to myself. That's the first thing. It's also, a collective bargaining issue because you have to work with the unions and the labor, and you have to level with them. One of the things that we can't do is pretend to have less money than we really do, go to the negotiating table, and then, get some type of concession, only to come back and say, oh, we found all this extra money. That happens a little too much right now. But there's a lot of things that could be done differently, if we were looking at what you just described, basically depression. We hope to not have to cut services. Furloughs are a possibility. This is one that, in my 5 years as a state representative, I haven't had to actually personally deal with, but, to the mayor's credit, he actually has back in 2008, 2009.
During 2008, 2009 was probably one of the worst economic downturns that I will see in my lifetime. And certainly just for the city, never mind the cuts from the state level, but just for the revenues that dropped from the city, we lost between $2 and $3 million in local receipts. And that was at a dollar amount that was about $12 million at that time. We had to absorb that. And how do we do that? We did that by furloughs. We did that by hiring freezes. We did have to get some temporary concessions by reopening some contracts. And all non-essential spending came to a freezing halt. And for those of you who were around and paid attention back then, we ended up having to cut all municipal line items. And some people made a joke that it came down to certain dollar amounts here and there that were literally in dollars. But that's how we ended up getting through that time. And then we also were in a position where we had some one-time reserve dollars to help cushion that. But certainly not getting through that first year, but it was also something that we would have to do to look forward into the next year, that we would also have to look at a reduction in service across the board to be in line with any type of massive dramatic cuts.
Don't sit down, you're next. What basic services in our city need improvement and why?
That's a good one. I will tell you first and foremost, probably last year was a year that we probably had the most complaints on snow removal across the city. We didn't have massive amounts of snow removal, but we certainly did have a couple of big storms. And that was something that came back loud and clear. And certainly there have been much discussions with the Superintendent of Public Works Highway Division. But not to say that they didn't do a good job. It is a difficult job to do. But I think that we can do a better job at outlining the routes in advance, taking people actually on the routes to see if we can do a better job and not cause as much damage to people's lawns and landscaping as we did last year. We have contractors that we work with as well. But that was certainly, as a basic level service that we all need, that was a very big complaint that we had last year. I think that we can also do additional programming as it relates to things that happen in our public park system. There's much more that we can do in that area, and as we continue to be able to make our strides known in those areas, that I think we can do a better job with that. And I also think we get a lot of complaints from time to time on recycling and rubbish services, where the hauler tends to miss certain items. Those types of complaints that come in, that we can certainly try to work with waste management and do a better job there as well.
When this question was just asked, the very first thing that came to mind is homelessness. As a state representative, I've actually dealt a lot with homelessness. I've personally driven people to the homeless shelter in Brockton. I've personally driven people to the welfare office in Taunton, and I deal with unemployment cases every single week. We're a gateway city. We're not a rich community. Our median household income is below the state's median. And, there's a meeting that happens once a month. It's called the Self-Sufficiency Coalition, and Irene Frechette is around here somewhere. She's right there. Hey, Irene. She actually brings together a great coalition of what I like to call, kind of liberal do-gooders. They like to make the world a better place by helping people out. But, our social programs and the social networks, the safety networks and the safety nets that go on here, those need to be tightened up. I do agree with the mayor that the situation with the plowing is also one that we can always do better at, but that's not a swipe at the people who do the plowing hour after hour when, we're warm in our homes. It's also something that we can deficit spend on, and that's something, it's, I think, the one thing that we might be able to be a deficit spend on. So, it's something that if there's ever a problem, it's important to communicate with your city councilors, and that then gets fed up the chain to, well, I shouldn't say up the chain, it's an equal branch, but it gets passed over to the executive branch if there's roads that aren't done. So, thank you.
Okay, this question will begin with Paul. Our library has been experiencing major structural problems. How can you plan to pay for them?
Well, one of the first things we have to do is find out, I think I knew who asked that question. So we have to first find out, what the exact problems are, and then find out if there's any existing revenue or grant programs at the state or federal level to help pay for those. That's number one. After that, if we've exhausted all of those, then what I'd like to do is see what our capital capacity is, and when we have availability, then we go right to the fixing up those problems. Basically, if you are going to use something over the course of time, you should pay for it over the course of time. That's why I'd want to use our capital budget, sort of like a credit card, as opposed to tagging it on the operating budget, which is more like a debit card. Thank you.
We've actually been in the process, started off with what we thought was going to be a simple roof replacement project. Certainly, it's much more than that. And all of the other mechanical systems that operate the library's HVAC systems have to be completely rehabilitated. So it was decided that we're going to take this as a comprehensive approach and to be able to deal with the whole building envelope. And to address all of the needs all at once, being more cost-effective, and coming up with one design plan to be able to identify all of the needs. And we're in process in doing that now. And we will be taking the next steps, of course, to actually put a price tag on that. But we certainly think that that's going to be about approximately probably over $1 million to do all the needed repairs that are needed for that building. It is a beautiful historical building. It certainly provides a great service to the public. But we will be doing that responsibly. So a portion of it will be paid for with cash. There'll be another portion of that which we'll temporarily borrow, is going to be my proposal to the City Council when we get to a finite dollar amount, that we will be not doing a long-term bond for, but that something would be a short-term bond in order to be able to go through and take care of those necessary repairs to that building.
Don't sit down. The next question is, what style of leadership does the city need right now?
I think the city needs a style of leadership that is very directed and inclusive, and it certainly is encompassing of all the city department head leaders and all of our boards and commissions that provide for the great work that's being done. It needs to be a steady hand as we make our way through. Specifically, the next 12 months are very crucial for the city as we prepare and embark on the high school project, as well as going through and working out all of our other capital projects across the city. The stability is very important, and I think that it needs to be a clear directive, and it also needs as much as inclusion as possible.
The leadership that the city needs extends beyond just working with the city departments, and what it involves is actually working more collaboratively with the community, with nonprofits in the community, with, as I indicated earlier, the Self-Sufficiency Coalition, with the Chamber of Commerce, with the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority, which actually does not report to the mayor's office. So it's based on relationships. The more relationships you have, the better off you can get things done. And that's something that I think we are lacking right now, and that's something I'd like to bring to the mayor's office.
Paul, question. How can we create more opportunities for youth? What can we do to encourage college graduates to come back to Attleboro at this point?
That's a great question, and that gets to the heart of the kind of vision I have for Attleboro. It's more to do here in Attleboro, more business opportunities. As I said earlier, we have 23 vacancies downtown. That hasn't changed over the last 6 years. We do have Bristol Community College that has come here recently, and we also have Bridgewater State, but the opportunities, if we have internships, as I said this earlier, I have an internship program within my office at the State House. I've had, maybe at least a dozen or so interns over the last 5 years. That's a program we could also employ here. When I was out at the University of Southern California, one of the things that the local groups did, like service providers, they would actually use they would get their resources from college students. So, bring them in to work with the nonprofits. That's another thing we could do, have a better internship program with, because Wheaton College is up the street. We've got students that commute to Rhode Island College, Providence College, we have Fisher College. There's plenty around. And we could also, start that even earlier, with shadowing programs within high school. We could do as much as our imaginations allow us to. There's a lot we could do.
I'd like to be able to continue and actually expand upon our summer jobs program, which is expansive through our Park and Recreations Department, but also kind of push that into other areas across city government. We've been very successful in working with Bridgewater State University. I'd like to be able to branch off into some other areas of some additional schools to provide for opportunities in different departments. We've had lab technicians that have come in and worked in the water wastewater department. We've had different students come in and work through different departments, providing a wide variety of services. I'd like to be able to expand those programs, if brought back for another term, to be able to have more opportunities for youth.
One bonus question. Come on up here. If you could have dinner with any person, living or dead, who would you choose and why?
Wow. That's one heck of a bonus question. I'd probably bring back to have the opportunity to have dinner with my grandparents again, influential in my life, and those people that you miss and who are near and dear to your life, you could wish that you have another opportunity to sit down and break bread with them again.
I agree. I think it would also be my grandparents. Grandfather died when I was 10 years old. My grandmother, two grandmothers at different times, 2004 and then again in 2011, and my paternal grandfather I never actually got to meet. So I think out of all four of them, maybe it would be my paternal grandfather, my father's father. So.
A big thank you to all of you who put questions in. You did a good job. Give yourselves a hand. All right, don't get spoiled. That's enough. Okay, the third part of the program now will allow the candidates to ask each other questions. Mayor Dumas is going to ask the first question. Paul is going to have a 2-minute response time, and then Mayor Dumas will have a 1-minute rebuttal. Does everybody have that straight? Mr. Volterra, you on top of this with the timing? I expect that these gentlemen are going to be able to handle this without me. So I'm going to step aside. You know the ground rules. I gave you the list. We're going to begin now with Mayor Dumas.
Mr. Houghton, the school committee unanimously approved the 5-year school sustainability plan, which lays out a plan and a path to close the $9.3 million needs gap as outlined for today. This plan specifically identifies roughly $3 million of sustainable dollars above net school spending for each of those 5 years, plus an additional $4 million as soon as the legislature does the right thing and passes the RISE Act. Meanwhile, what we've only heard is about some additional marijuana dollars coming to the city of Attleboro for your plan. What is your plan to be able to close the $9.3 million needs gap?
That 5-year plan that the mayor outlined was unanimously approved by the school committee, but I would say look at the political reality of it. Who would ever vote against it? Who would vote against any plan? Before I talk about what I would like to do, I want to talk about why I'm not happy with the current school plan. The 5-year school plan begins in 2019. That's the first year it would be implemented. Tax revenues from the millionaire's tax wouldn't start until collection until at least 2019, and not be able to be available to be spent until about 2020. Even then, passing the RISE Act wouldn't happen until 2020 or 2021. So the timing of the plan is not useful to the Attleboro Public Schools at present. Also, it's based on contract negotiations that have not happened with with respect to reducing the healthcare costs, and I've spoken with the teachers union. They're not going to budge on contract, on reducing the healthcare costs, and I don't know if they should. Same thing with the fire union. The mayor talked about in our last debate how there was one union that has been secured, sort of, hasn't been ratified yet. So it was kind of an exaggeration to talk about that, but that one particular union also has 10 employees in it. And the plan to reduce healthcare costs from 75% to 60% would only apply to new employees. So the savings on that aspect of it are non-existent. There are, I don't want to spend all my time talking about that plan. What I would like to do differently is, like I was saying before, improve the business climate, raise the business tax revenues in Attleboro. We do have $1 to $3 million of new growth that has never been put towards any other city department. I would like to dedicate that, the majority or all of it towards education. I've also committed, using the same revenues that are coming in right now, 1.25 over net school spending as opposed to the mayor's 1 million over net school spending. And I'm also proposing over 50% as opposed to his current 50%, because the schools make up a fluctuating basis, whether it's going to be 53%, 56%, it's a fluctuating basis. So additionally, there's another difference I have, and I would not use retired debt on current school projects and put that towards, I mentioned this earlier, I would not put that towards the operating budget. What I would rather do with that is have that go towards reducing the costs associated with the new high school construction. That way that tax hike won't be so high, more people will be able to afford it and buy into it, and more people can vote for it. Then we don't have to worry about that failing.
Well, my plan as presented of known dollars that can end up helping the education system beginning in fiscal 19, which is for next July 1st. So the next budget that gets presented would include this, is the $1 million over the minimum net school spending requirement. We'll continue that, including 50% of the tax levy that would go towards education. And in addition to that, $750,000 more. So that is even more than what my opponent was just talking about, and that starts in July. The other portions of the plan which are important is the fact that we're focusing on cost control, and it's not just with the school departments, with all city departments, and that's something that's crucial and important as we move forward with budgetary planning and looking at revenues and expenses. And there are additional things in the plan, such as consolidation of buildings, selling off of those buildings into a reserve that the school can draw down upon as it needs. In addition to the fact that also with the new high school, once built, we'll realize over $500,000 in energy costs that can be poured back into the operating budget that will also help the schools. So all important factors of the plan.
In our first debate, I brought up the issue of one lawsuit, and that was, oh, sure. I apologize. In our first debate, I brought up the issue of a lawsuit, and that was the Michael Milanowski lawsuit. I'd like to bring up another lawsuit tonight, and that's one that involved a labor dispute. It was a $2 million lawsuit, and this is one that was there were 3 counts of civil rights violations, and it resulted in a settlement. And I believe you know the lawsuit I'm talking about. This is one where the mayor went in and verbally berated the wife of a city employee. That city employee is here tonight. The reason I bring this up as an issue, this has been covered in the news. We lose lawsuit after lawsuit, a lot of labor lawsuits. That's a lot of money that's going out because of the way management is conducting affairs. Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask you, what would you have liked to have done differently to avoid the settlement?
Thank you, Mr. Haro. And what he also won't state tonight is the fact that there's a confidentiality agreement, so I can't get into the specifics. But in generalities, this started off with a labor issue, and it had to do with something that happened in the police department. Something that was, remember back in the day, there were some things that were going on back then that had to do with some police corruption. And that's something that would not be tolerated, and I wouldn't change that, which is very important. But the allegation of $2 million was not paid out, which is also very important to note. And if the person at that point, what you're specifically calling out about berating somebody, that person was actually at my house that day of that accusation in the afternoon.
I'm not sure what happened at your house that afternoon, but I've spoken with her, and she felt threatened, intimidated, and she was in tears. And you were banned for life from ever going back into the restaurant establishment because of your behavior. That's correct. It was a $2 million lawsuit, but it wasn't a $2 million settlement. The fact of the matter is, what I would do differently, is when you have a labor dispute, I would not go and yell at the wife of somebody that you're having a problem with. Who does that? It happened. And we paid out tens and thousands of dollars in a settlement as a result of that. Under my administration, and it's going to start from the top down, we're going to have an ethical culture, not one where people are going to be afraid to speak out at a labor meeting or a work meeting. Somebody was actually brave enough to speak out, and he was retaliated against. That'll never happen under me.
Mr. Haro, when you first began campaigning, you told some people that you didn't support the proposed Attleboro High School project. Then the position changed, and you began telling people that you supported a more modest plan for Attleboro High School. But last week, at our last debate on Friday, you acknowledged that the project as proposed by the school building committee is the only viable option. So do you understand why some people may question whether you really support this proposed Attleboro High School project as presented?
You mischaracterize the nature of which I have given any commitment towards the new high school. I've never once said I'm against the new high school. What I've said, early on, what I would say is I will follow the will of the people. That's extremely important. As a person learns more, it's okay that their opinion changes. I don't think anybody in this room has ever not changed an opinion before. So, what I learned over the course of time is that there are a lot of consequences if the school proposal doesn't go through. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a possibility it may not go through. Your characterization of my position on the school, though, it's just not accurate. The current proposal is the only proposal because it's the proposal based on the only school plan that we have. That's why it is the only proposal. But and as I said at the beginning of this, I think it was our first question, what happens if it fails? We would have to have a different school plan. Because without a different school plan, we can't get a different school building proposal. And if we propose the same school a second time for a vote or a third time, we're going to get the same or a worse result. So there's a lot more moving parts involved in it, and there's a lot more of the realities involved than just saying, oh, your position has changed over the course of time. I've never once said I'm opposed to the new school, but I definitely had some reservations based on the possibility of it passing or not.
I do think it's important that as a leader that you be able to do your research, look at the different options, and then be able to make the best decision and be able to stand by it, because that's what is needed in every circumstance, whether we're dealing with a new high school or we're dealing with something else for another proposed project, whether it be the library or a wastewater treatment facility. It's very important that people understand what your clear objectives are and to what your actual plan is and to stand by it. And it's come back via many people and also the different stances, just as it came across in our debate last Friday, that your position did change, and it's important for people to know where you stand.
Mailing. Mr. Dumas, Mayor Dumas, I received, as did pretty much every other household in Attleboro, a mailing from you. And in this mailing it talks about, I'll read it, quote, "For the past 14 years, my administration has been a force for change. The proof is everywhere you look." It lists a couple of different things. One of them is the New England Sports Village. What role did you have with the New England Sports Village?
I think I know where your question's going, so I'll try to be able to answer this the best way that I can. But I can tell you that the direct involvement came, certainly it started off with Chairman Rick Correa in bringing the New England Sports Village to the city of Attleboro as an opportunity to be able to buy the struggling industrial business park. He brought that to us, and there was a lot of work to be done. There was a lot of work in leading them hand by hand through all of the city's boards and commissions, all the things that would be required of them, especially with the long number of relief items that were going to be necessary. So all of the departments that we worked with, we sat down, had department head meetings so they could get to know the face and the name of all the department heads, and they could make those one-on-one relationships. And those discussions with them went on and on and on throughout their entire process until they actually received all of their full permitting. And then once they had their funding in place, then they broke ground. But there was direct involvement with them.
Several months ago, I sat down with the owner of the New England Sports Village, and I asked him that exact question because I had spoken with the chairman of the ARA. And when I asked him, I said, "What role did the mayor have?" He stared at me. He didn't say anything. And I said, "Are you saying that you're not saying anything because he didn't have any role?" And he smiled at me. There's been a long pattern of taking credit for projects and taking credit where credit is not deserved. This is one of the most egregious examples of it. Not only did the mayor have absolutely nothing to do with the creation of the New England Sports Village, when the owner, David Boucher, was asking for extensions on, closing on the deal, at one point the mayor wanted to terminate the project. He tried to kill the New England Sports Village from ever happening. This is a multi-million-dollar facility that is bringing in a lot of tax revenues to Attleboro. This pattern of taking credit where credit's not deserved extends beyond that. It's also a situation where we have the Renaissance Tower North. That was land owned by Automatic Machines, sold to the ARA, and then after the ARA cleaned it up, it was sold to a developer, Marco Crognelli, and then it was developed on. We have our bond rating. The bond rating plan to improve our bond rating was developed by a former treasurer. No credit has been given to the former treasurer. Not only on that note of the bond rating, we don't have the second highest bond rating. We are in the second highest bond rating category. There's a difference. A little sleight of words. Under my administration, what I'd like to do a lot differently than the way things are currently being done is give credit where credit's due. Give it where it's deserved. That's extremely important for the morale of the people that you're working with. It's extremely important for the progress to happen. I'm not threatened by somebody else doing a good job. That doesn't bother me. We're all better off if credit is given where credit is deserved. If morale is high, productivity will be better. This is basic business.
Mr. Haro, you seem very interested in tackling my attendance record on various boards and commissions I sit on. Since the January of 2016, the School Building Committee has met over 30 times to discuss, design, and advance one of the most important school projects in the history of the city. These meetings have all been public, and can you explain why you haven't even bothered to attend one single of those meetings?
That's a great question. Actually, I have attended more than one. I've attended two. The fact of the matter is, how many meetings have you attended at the State House that I'm required to be at as a state representative? It's not actually my job to attend the meetings that you're the chair of. Your attendance record at these meetings that you are the chair of is 18%. Legislation that I sponsored, the foundation, I misspoke, co-sponsored the Foundation Budget Review Commission legislation, the commission to look at the Chapter 70 funding formula for education. Your attendance record was less than 50%. I'm not the chair of the school building committee. The mayor is. I'm the state representative. I've watched a lot of these video meetings online. On the DoubleACS posts them on YouTube, and I've watched them. And over the course of time, I've become better informed about the needs of the school district. I've met with a couple of school committee members, but I think you're confusing your job with mine.
I'm not confusing my job with yours. And actually, I think it's important to note that if you're the state representative that represents 11 out of the 12 precincts in Attleboro, and you're running for the office of mayor, that I think it's important to be able to be involved with the process and to be able to know and to be able to experience that. The other thing that I think is important to note is that there are several times that I cannot attend every single meeting that I go to, and I also take advantage of the skill and expertise in the room, and certainly Co-Chairman Jack Jacoby has done an excellent job in chairing the committee and also being briefed on those meetings that I haven't been able to directly attend.
Mayor Dumas, on multiple occasions, you have said that the city was on the verge of bankruptcy when you were elected in 2003. Could you please elaborate on that?
Sure. Upon entering into office, the city certified free cash was $7,333. In addition to that, there was a $1,094,000 budgetary issue that I inherited that had to be cleared. And in addition to that, there was also a couple $1 million worth of liability that existed that had to be cleared before June 30th. The city was virtually bankrupt. The budgetary issue that had to be resolved was split evenly with the school department at that time, and it was about $532,000 that came out of the city stabilization fund, which only left $200,000 left in the city stabilization fund at that time, virtually nothing, and the city had massive, massive financial issues.
It's really easy to attack somebody who can't defend themselves. New growth was certified by the Department of Revenue between the time when the mayor took office and when he was sworn in at $1.8 million. Free cash was certified by the Department of Revenue at $2 million. There were no articles in the Sun Chronicle talking about us being on the verge of bankruptcy. There was a vote to dedicate some of that money towards education. $800,000 of the $1.8 million in new growth went towards education, but as you, the mayor-elect, were asked by a city councilor at the time where you think the money should go, you declined putting that $800,000 towards schools. I feel like you owe the citizens of Attleboro an apology for misleading them on the true nature of our financial stability. We were not on the verge of bankruptcy. $1.8 million certified by the Department of Revenue after he was elected. $2 million in free cash by the Department of Revenue. But not only does he owe the citizens an apology for misleading them on the nature of Attleboro's, and Attleboro had some troubles, I'll admit that, but it was not nearly of the magnitude of near bankruptcy. But in May, at the Judy Robbins Riverwalk, you sang the praises of former Mayor Robbins. You appointed her to the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority. If Attleboro was in such dire straits from a disastrous tenure under Mayor Robbins, why would you appoint her to that? But the thing that really frustrates me is a half hour after you sang her praises, you were at the Blackington Inn saying the same message that we're on the verge of bankruptcy, and it was because of your predecessor. I think you owe her family and her memory an apology.
That ends that portion of our debate tonight, and we wrap up with 5-minute closing statements, and we begin with Mr. Hero. 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be here. I never thought I'd be running for mayor. But when you have parent after parent and teacher after teacher come to you and ask you to run, to consider it, to think about it, how do you say no to that? You know, my personal philosophy about public service is not about those who serve, it's about those who would be served. It's about you. It's not about becoming the longest serving mayor or rattling off a long list of accomplishments. What it's about is the service to the people every day, a responsive government. In my opinion, what we're looking at right now is a situation where the incumbent has become the very thing he set out to get rid of. I want to do things different in Attleboro. I've identified 3 specific categories. It starts with business. having a more business-friendly atmosphere, working with groups like the Chamber, who are not currently utilized as a resource, hiring an economic development director to bring businesses to Attleboro, bringing new revenues to Attleboro. These are things that are not currently being done. I also want to have an education plan that is one that people can depend on. You know, 7 out of 14 years, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education record that Attleboro was spending below what it's supposed to. 7 out of 14 years, we were spending below what it was supposed to, 7 out of the last 14 years. And in fairness to the mayor, his predecessor didn't do much better. With respect to city governance, there's a lot that can be done differently. You know, term limits are a good thing. I would like to form a charter commission so that we can look at our city charter and talk about establishing term limits. That way we never have a situation where we have a mayor get entrenched again, because it's happened too many times in Attleboro. I'd also like I said before, put our city checkbook online. It is your money. There should be no secrecy around it. If lawsuits happen under my administration and we lose, I want you to know how much we lost. That's not the standard right now. It is your money. I'd also like to have a disability commission. A disability commission is, as I said earlier, really important. At present, half of the revenues we collect for tickets issued to people parked in handicapped parking spots are supposed to go to a disability commission. But we don't have a disability commission. Where are those revenues going? Probably to the general fund for things other than disability issues. I don't think that's right. The vision I have for Attleboro starts with inclusivity. It starts with working with the partners who are here. It's not about bricks and mortar. It's not about, you know, the school that somebody is educated in. It's about what goes on in the school. Those are your words back in 2003. A lot has changed since 2003. I'd like to think the mayor has done some good things. He brought us this far. I can bring us even further. With that, I hope you'll vote for me on November 7th, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity tonight to hear from both of us. And I'm very honored to have been serving as your mayor for the past 14 years. It really is a privilege and an honor, and to be able to see the hard work and dedication of over 1,100 employees who do their very best every single day to be able to touch people. And that's you. It's you, the residents, and the services that we provide, or it's the kids in the classroom, over 6,000 students, to reach every single child possible, to be able to make a difference in a way. And that takes everybody working extremely hard in order to make the city a different place. And there's no doubt that in 14 years, you can see that. And that is in the face of so many different things that we see across this great city, something that I'm extremely proud of. Can we do better? I started off by saying that tonight. We absolutely can do better. And if we miss the mark, then we pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and we are determined to do better and learn from our mistakes and do something differently. But I have to say, you know, people saying that you're arrogant, or you don't like people, or you're not with the average person. I don't share some of these stories too often. I won't say names, but they're real stories. So it's somebody that's calling my office as it relates to somebody who lost a loved one because of the opioid epidemic, and they need help. If it's somebody who's struggling, who's an addict, and the POP team gets assigned for them from the police department to hopefully make a difference in their lives or the lives of those people who are dealing with their loved one who's an addict. Or whether it's the case of somebody who's homeless, to be able to try and find them a job and shelter and roof over their head. Or if it's the time when we get notified as the city that the mayor's office gets a letter that Leach & Gardner was going to close its doors and over 500 employees were going to lose their job. And working with Nancy Young, Nancy Young's an amazing local business person. And when she heard about it also that same day, she got on the phone, we talked together. We made some contacts, and she actually called some contacts with the Jewelry Smiths of America in New York, and ended up getting several people interested in buying that company. They came, they met with us. okay? And being able to work those relationships are extremely important. What things that the city could do, but also what types of advantages are available at the state level. And by doing that, it was not only recognized by the governor, but it was also brought to the fact that a Berkshire Hathaway company owned by Warren Buffett bought Leach & Gardner, now Leach Gardner, and saved those jobs. And in 2012, in August, when we went to the ribbon-cutting ceremony, and when people came up to me afterwards and say, "Thank you so much for your help, we know what you did, and you helped save my job." The job of mayor is everything. It's to so many different people, to so many walks of life. It doesn't matter what area of the city you live in, whether it's economic development related in your employment, whether it's the fact of the services that we provide to you, but an advocate for all people to do the very best that we can do. That's what it means to be mayor. That's what it means to be a good leader and to represent all of your people. Do the very best that you can do. Hold your head up high, make those decisions, and work the hardest that you can. And when you see those results that come out of that, and when your staff is invigorated, and when they want to give 110% every day, that's what makes me keep on going. And I'm extremely proud of the dedication of our city staff, and I do give them the credit where it's deserved, especially of all the things that we talk about and all the projects that we do. I always thank them because we couldn't do it without them. But I am very proud to be here tonight. I'm proud to be a part of this campaign. I am committed, I am dedicated, and I ask for your vote of support and your confidence on November 7th. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank both candidates for doing such a wonderful job, and I would not want to miss the opportunity to say that these two gentlemen are products of the Attleboro school system. What you heard tonight was the result of education in Attleboro and beyond. And in order to continue that, we need everyone's support to put our young people in the future into a building that has an environment conducive to what will happen to them in the future. And one last word, take this along with you. Remember that bad city officials are elected by good citizens who do not vote. Thank you and good night. Good job.